morning, everyone. Welcome to Wanies Academy once again. Today we are in for our physics lesson, and the topic we are considering this morning is reducing unwanted energy transfer. Reducing unwanted energy transfer. In our previous lesson, we talked about the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can only be transferred or transformed from one form to another. And so, looking at that basic law that governs the way energy is transferred and how in the use of energy and all of those things, we discover that how do we now reduce unwanted energy? In the other class, we also talked about the way energy is transferred using the Sankey diagram and the energy transfer diagram. We have also looked at some of those energies are useful, some are, unwanted, some, are not directly used. And so, how do we reduce the quantum of the useful energy and reducing the quantum of the unwanted energy and increasing the quantum of the wanted energy or the useful energy? So in this topic, we are going to be looking at three lesson objectives. Objective one, we are going to look at identify and explain the three main ways energy is transferred. We've talked about that before, but we are going to recap because it is from that concept that we'll be able to look at how each of the concepts can be reduced. So we have learned conduction, convection, and radiation. We are going to look at them in another perspective this morning. We are looking at them the way they contribute to unwanted energy loss. So then our lesson objective number 2 is on describe. We're going to describe and evaluate various methods used to reduce unwanted energy transfer in buildings, in appliances, and in any mechanical system. Then the last one, how do we apply this knowledge? I see that is the crux of the matter. Any knowledge acquired is expected to be applied. So how do we apply this knowledge of insulation, of lubrication, and reflective surfaces, in our day-to-day activities, in a real-life scenario? So these are the things we're going to be looking at today. I believe you are going to enjoy the lesson. So let's go on. Reducing. How do we reduce unwanted energy transfer? Reduction of unwanted energy transfer is essential, in many applications. Now, from improving the efficiency of an appliance, you see, when you reduce the amount of energy, the quantum of energy that is wasted, then you make the appliance more efficient and also to maximize heat loss in various buildings. Now, the key principle is to reduce the rate at which energy is lost. Now, how do we reduce it? Then we need to consider how energy is actually transferred. We have learned before now that energy is transferred in three basic ways: through conduction, convection, and radiation. So we're going to look at how to reduce unwanted energy in the course of energy transfer. So now we look at the first one, insulation. Insulation. What's insulation? The word insulation, is just the opposite of conduction. And so insulation, conduction. Now, in our building, when we prevent the exchange of heat energy, that is insulation, a material that prevents the flow of heat or electric charge is called an insulator. And so when we talk about insulation, when a building is packaged in a way that the heat loss is minimized, then we say, oh, the building has been insulated. So in our building, for example, loft insulation, the cavity walls insulation, the double glazing windows, and drought excluders. All of these materials help us to reduce the amount of heat that is lost in our building. So in our appliances as well, that is applicable to buildings. But in our appliances, how do we, reduce the amount of heat that is lost, in our appliances? Now, number one is that you have insulated materials in our kettle. We have insulated, when you check the internal component of a refrigerator, you will see some foams that were put there and all of those things. They serve as insulators. They serve as insulators. Then our oven also, they are incorporated with materials that prevent the exchange of heat to the environment. And so oven prevent unwanted energy loss as well. All of these materials, they have been insulated because heat is needed in them. So they have been insulated so that to reduce the amount of heat that is exchanged with the environment. Is it clear? Good. That is about insulation of buildings, our appliances. Now we go to how do we do that, using conduction, reducing conduction. Already you know that conduction involves two materials, touching each other, then heat is transferred. Now, how do we now reduce the amount of heat that is transferred when two materials touches one another? Number one, the use of insulating materials. Materials with low thermal conductivity can be applied. Like our fiberglass, our wool can be used, foams, and all of those materials, they prevent the escape of heat. And so it can be used as a means of, preventing heat from getting out of our materials. Then we can also use vacuum layers, vacuum layer. A vacuum can be created, a vacuum between layers, e.g. in our flags, in our thermal flags, in our double glazed windows, we use vacuum layers. Now, all of these prevent, conduction. It prevents conduction since there are no particles to transfer heat with. So now, I said that when we talk about conduction, it's a method of transfer of heat or heat energy that involves two bodies coming together, touching one another. And so, because when there is a vacuum layer, there is a space, between two layers, two materials, it does not allow them to touch each other. As a result of that, heat cannot be transferred. So this is another method of reducing unwanted heat. Now, the next one we're going to look at is reducing convection. Convection is a method of heat transfer that involves fluid. And when we talk about fluid in physics, we're talking about both liquids and the gaseous states of matter. And so now, how do we reduce convection? How? How do we reduce convection? Reducing convection, number one is trapping air. By trapping air, materials like foam and fiberglass, they can trap air. Now, this, preventing convection current from forming. And so when air, they are trapped, the air particles are trapped, it prevents convection current to what? To form. And so as a result of that, unwanted heat, unwanted energy can be reduced. Now, another thing we can do in, reducing convection is sealing gaps, like drought excluders and seal around doors and windows prevents the movement of warm air out and cold air in. So when we prevent the exchange of air, that can also help in reducing heat through convection. So that is another way of reducing heat through convection. Then the number 4 is reducing radiation. That is another method of heat transfer. It can be reduced. How do we do this? Number 1, we use reflective surfaces. Shiny or white surfaces reflect, radiations. And so because it reflects, it does not absorb. So when in the course of production, of all of these materials, reflective or shiny surfaces can be used in order to reduce the, escape of heat from the material. So that is number one way of reducing radiation, reducing heat in the, through radiation. Now, reducing heat transfer by radiation, we can use foil-backed insulation is used in building. Foil-backed insulation is also used in building to reduce heat through radiation. Then polished surfaces in flags. You see our flags, food flags and all of those things. We use, shiny surfaces, polished surfaces is for it to reduce heat transfer. Now, the inner walls are often silver-lined to reflect infrared radiation back inside our flags. So then lastly, radiation can also, be reduced, reducing friction. In a mechanical system, lubrication can be used to reduce friction. As a result of that, we reduce unwanted heat. So these are the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways of reducing unwanted heat during the course of energy transfer. Do you have any question before we end today's class? Okay, no question. This is, as I've said before, this is Wanies Academy. Try to watch our video and also subscribe to our video. Thank you for listening.